Today on my channel, Planner Friends, we're going to delve into the next chapter. I completed it of The Women of the Bible Speak, and we are going to discuss Rachel and Leah. And there were times in this study I just didn't understand. This is not an easy read, as I said here, but in the end, it all makes incredible sense, and I will explain it to you and share with you what I've learned. So please stay tuned, friends. Hello, Planner Friends, and welcome to my channel. I'm One Crafty Dolo, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. Thank you. Thank you for taking your time and spending it with me. On Sundays on my channel, it is always about faith and Bible studies, faith planning, prayer journaling, something in the realm of faith. Jesus is always at the center, and here I have a good mug of tea as always. So today I want to go through the second chapter in this book that I had purchased a while ago from Hobby Lobby, and I studied some of it before. I didn't finish it, but now I'm redoing it, and I'm doing it in such a better way that I feel so much more comfortable with this study. If you're new to my channel, you're welcome to subscribe and join our little community. If you're one of my subscribers, one of my quote-unquote regulars, thank you. I appreciate you. I am praying for you. If you need extra prayer, put it in the comments, and know that once you're in there, I'm continuing to pray for you. This book was an impulse purchase at Hobby Lobby a while ago, and you can find it at libraries, I've discovered. Given how long it's taking me to get through it, it's just as well that I bought it. So I did already a video on Sarah and Hagar. I can link that below. And now I did Rachel and Leah, sisters and rivals. And I'm about to start Tamar and Ruth. So that should be interesting. So what have I learned here? Well, I'm going to tell you something. Actually, I'll put this right under here. The study on Sarah and Hagar was so helpful to me, I can't begin. I don't even know that my video adequately explains it. This one was a tougher slog till I got to the end. Then I figured it out, and then it all made sense. So I'm going to take you through it and talk to you a little bit about it, because I really did. I had a tough time in some ways with this. And so let's begin. So you have the story of three people in particular that is really tied in here. You have Jacob at the center, you have Rachel, and you have her older sister, Leah. Now, what we see in this story, it begins in many ways in Genesis 28:12. And Jacob dreams, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and on top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were descending and ascending on it. So that story of Jacob's ladder is very famous, right? And so he hears from God, and God says, behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. Remember Isaac from Sarah, right? The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your offspring, and this becomes the land of Bethel. So God makes a promise to Jacob. So to back up one really quickly, he had conflict with his brother Esau, and he cheated his brother and swindled his brother. So then he left. He heard that he was what my brother and sister would have called, he was dead meat. Okay, he was done for. So he got out of there, and he went to his uncle's house, headed towards his uncle's house. Laban is the uncle's name. So, and Laban's daughters are Leah and Rachel. So let me bring that in there. So as soon as Jacob, so he first encounters Rachel, Jacob that is, Genesis 29:10. Now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, Jacob came near and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And then he kissed Rachel, we go on to 11 and 12 here, and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. So here we have, basically he sees Rachel and he is besotted with her. He is just in love with her. So then the story goes that he loved Rachel. Here we are, still in this is all Genesis. And he said, I will serve you 7 years for your daughter, Rachel. So he commits himself. If you study American history and indentured servants, 7 years was always the term. So he commits himself to this, right? And he does this. But what happens is Rachel is beautiful. The Bible talks about this. And Laban agrees. But then he does a switcheroo. And he swaps Leah for Rachel. So when the story goes, when Jacob wakes up in the morning, surprise, he's married to the sister Leah, not to Rachel. Okay. And then, he says, why have you deceived me? Right? I did all this for you. What is going on? Now, here you'll see I write Jacob, Rachel, and Leah is a very complex story, and I'm not going to explain every little bit about it. But he basically bargains for another 7 years. That's all in here in this part of Genesis, right? And what starts to happen is this competition between Leah and Rachel. And this comes to fertility, which we saw in the case of Sarah and Hagar, right? Remember, Sarah says, I'm barren. I'm not having children. Go have a child. Go conceive with Hagar. And he does, Abraham does, and then there's problems. Well, this is kind of the similar thing. And so I'm going to come back to her sons' names because this is really important. In the end, Leah conceives 4 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Okay? And it's really important. So Rachel is jealous. She's upset, and she says, in Genesis 31, Rachel, says to Jacob, give me children or I shall die. And he gets angry with her, interestingly, because Laban believed in idols and idol worship. Jacob believed in one God. And so he basically admonishes her and says, who are we to argue with God here? What are you doing, basically? So then it gets complicated with more servants and having children with servants. It's really it's a hard read, to be honest with you, right? But the thing here is Laban's deceit cost everybody a lot. It just did. And you can see here I wrote, this is not an easy read, okay? So basically, there's a story about the oldest son, Reuben, who has the mandrake plant root, and Shannon Bream goes into depth about what the plant represented and how important it was. And Rachel says to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrake. And by then, Leah, who it's clear has been totally humiliated now, but she is a good mother, and I'll get to that. She stands up for herself and says to her sister, it's a small matter that you've taken away. Is it a small matter you've taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also? And then she ends up having 2 more sons and a daughter named Dinah. And that's a story later in the Bible, apparently. So God remembers Rachel because God never forgets any one of us. And that's really one of the keys to this story. She conceived and bore a son, and that is Joseph, as in Joseph with his coat, and so forth. So we have the birth of Joseph here. And then there starts to be this talk, and by the time we get to Genesis 31:1, Jacob turns to the 2 women, and says, the sons of Laban are saying, I've taken away the father's wealth. We got to get out of here. Okay. Then we come to this section in 31, and this is, according to Bream, extraordinary in that Jacob sits down with Rachel and with Leah and gets their input on leaving. And so he's consulting both women. He's giving them a voice. He's giving them a chance. And he lays it all out to both women, and it's incredible. And he assures them that God is with them and all of their offspring. Okay. And that's where I found it. Okay. It started to turn for me, like, okay, because it was hard. You have Leah is married to him and giving birth to all these children. Rachel has a child, well, eventually children, but at the time a child. And then you've got one servant and then the other servant having children with him. And it was like, what is the point? And I got really frustrated. I'm not going to lie to you. So I continued on. And in Genesis 31:16, all the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So Jacob gets the go-ahead. And the women leave, and a lot happens on the journey. It's pretty amazing. They have to trick Laban to get out. Laban follows them. It's a whole thing. And Rachel actually goes into labor, gives birth, and then she dies. And her tomb is still on the way to Bethel. She's buried on the way to Bethlehem. Okay, right now I believe that's in part of the West Bank. So we're not going there, but near Hebron. I don't think anybody's going there for some time, but there she is. The tomb is there. And God renames Jacob Israel, etc. So it gets really, it's hard. So where does Leah's power and come in? And it's amazing. In the story of Sarah and Hagar, Hagar is seen by God in her suffering, in her misery. He comes to a servant woman. In this, God reassures Leah. He sees Leah. And it's amazing when you reach that point here after all the other stuff. It's like, oh, okay. When Genesis 29:31, when the Lord saw Leah was hated, he opened her womb. Rachel was barren, and Leah conceived and bore a son. She called him Reuben, the Lord has looked upon my affliction, and now my husband will love me. And so as with each son, the first three sons are in some way, their names are some way related to her relationship with Jacob. Hear me out on this one. She conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son. And she called his name Simeon. And the Lord, then Levi is the third one. And she says, now this time my husband will be attached to me. Okay, so she says, I've borne him three sons. I couldn't get all the verses in here, but let me explain something to you. Then she conceives a fourth son and says, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore, she calls him Judah. And so by this point, she's accepted Jacob's God, and she's turning and finding her strength in motherhood and less so in that relationship with Jacob. Reuben, you've got Simeon, Levi, and Judah. And so her servant gives birth to two sons, Gad and Asher. And though the author says, though Leah may not have received her husband's love, she most certainly received God's blessing. Through Levi, her son, you have Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Through Judah, you have King David, and from him, Jesus descends from her. So from the one who is considered less than in comparison to her sister, we have Jesus and his lineage, and that's amazing. So I did a little less back here this time because, again, I was really kind of like slogging through it and getting confused and so forth. But as I said, Rachel's story is entwined with her sister. He comes into her life after cheating his brother. He has a vision, Jacob's ladder, and thereafter he sees Rachel and is so captivated. He kisses her and he cries and he bargains for her, right? And the Bible notes Rachel's beauty as compared to her sister Leah. And then, of course, he confronts Laban after his deceit and agrees to another 7 years in return for Rachel. And then we start to see discord between the sisters over childbearing. And I write it right here. It gets messy. Okay, it gets messy. She blames Leah, and God steps, when she steps up out of blame, that is, Rachel steps up out of blame and petty jealousy and praise, God hears her and gives her Joseph. And at the end, Leah, and Jacob unite with Rachel, and she dies in childbirth while giving birth to who becomes Benjamin. Okay. And so let's start at the end. I said here, because finally it makes sense to me. Unlike Hagar, Leah was not a servant. She was the older daughter. However, she felt unloved and unseen like Hagar, and that's key. His deceit had, and the author really fleshes this out really well. How humiliating must it have been for Leah to be like, okay, he wants Rachel, but I'm putting you in. Go. Like, she knows her husband doesn't want her. She knows people consider her sister beautiful, and she's just, they refer to her as weak eyes, whatever that may mean. They could be nearsighted. Scholars have extrapolated all kinds of stuff from that line. And from the start, she knows her husband doesn't love her. Okay, so that's a problem. And with every son, she reflects where she is in selecting their names. And then, as I said, the last son, Judah, she reflects belief in God and knows that God has seen her and has blessed her. By the passages of Reuben and the mandrake, right, we see Leah become stronger. She exulted in motherhood. She loved motherhood in the midst of the unbearable. And she not only carried on, but she focused on the good versus the bad. And then again, I say she is blessed because it is through her that we had King David. It is through her then Jesus's line comes. And that's incredible. And I honestly didn't know this. So there we have it. So that's Rachel and Leah in Women of the Bible. As always, friends, my hope is to inspire you in your faith and in your own creativity. And let's learn and grow together. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. And I appreciate you. And please, again, if you need prayers, drop in the comments below. Once I start praying for you, I'm not going to stop. Have a blessed week and spend some time in faith this week when you have some time. Thanks, planner and faith friends. Be blessed. Bye now.